Our third speaker in this session, focusing on North Asia, is Adam Kay, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Cotton Australia. Adam's been in that role for quite a while and been very involved in that industry's efforts around the promotion of Australian cotton and some of the issues they're running into and encountering in markets. More particularly, I guess, around private standards rather than necessarily government trade regulations. But please welcome Adam Kay.
Good morning, everyone. North Asia, you heard how important it is to AACO and dairy. Well, it's even more important to the cotton industry. When I think of China, South Korea and Japan, it's about 70% of our crop ends up in those countries, mainly China, but and lesser so South Korea and Japan. So if we think about an average Australian cotton crop, it's about $2 billion. That's about 1.4 billion going into that area. So pretty important for us. Our Australian cotton shippers, so there's 17 cotton merchants out there, and our Australian cotton shippers do a great job at finding a home for every bale we produce. And they do that every year. And that's all about the high quality and the reputation of Australian cotton out there. So if we can find a home for the crop every year and there's a great reputation there, why would we need to sort of worry about sort of telling our story out there on the global market? Well, I think we're seeing more and more the potential for sort of commercial trade restrictions, and that's really coming from brands and retailers imposing their will on us. And I guess the thing that the brands and retailers are trying to do is protect their reputation, because when you look out there in the global marketplace, there's all sorts of bad news about cotton. There's people and growths that are doing the wrong thing. You can imagine that retailers and brand owners don't want to be associated with some of the things that I'm just putting up on the screen now, and so they're looking to protect their reputations and their image, and that's why I guess they're imposing some of these commercial restrictions. So why do we want to get out there and tell our story? Well, really, it's if you have a look at the corporate social responsibility claims of some of the largest retailers and brands out there in the world, you can see that they're all making claims about using sustainably produced cotton. They want to know about the traceability of the product. They want to know that it's been responsibly produced. And Australia's in a great position to help them meet this, but we've got to get out and tell them our story. And when I say that, it really came home to me when on a visit to Tesco in the UK. Now, Tesco's got about $130 billion turnover. It's sort of the equivalent of Coles and Woolworths together times two. About 7,000 stores, 500,000 employees. It's a pretty big operation, and you can see down the window there, F&F. That's their fashion brand. So they're pretty big on clothing and fashion. And when I go and visit Tesco and meet the corporate social responsibility manager, she pushes across the table. She said, "Here's a letter that we've just sent out to all our suppliers, and it's about our suppliers of cotton. And it says basically by 2020 we're going to be 100% sustainable cotton. And by sustainable we mean it's going to be organic cotton, it's going to be cotton from the Better Cotton Initiative, or it's going to be cotton made in Africa." Now, Australia doesn't have any organic. At that stage we'd been working to get involved in the Better Cotton Initiative, but it was probably 5% of our production, and we certainly don't fit in cotton made in Africa. So she was telling us that we're almost, we're out of the market. So we took the time though, and I pitched up to her our Australian cotton story. It's a story that we're pretty proud of the last 20 years, of continuous improvement, of our investments in R&D. And we left the meeting, we pitched up our story, and about 3 months later I get an email from her saying, "Look, we've taken the information you gave us and we've done the proper diligence, and I want to let you know that we've added Australian cotton to our list of acceptable cottons, and that you're now on the list." Now, the real scary thing for Australian cotton was we didn't know we were off the list. And I think, how many other major brands and retailers are there out there where we're being potentially shut out in the future and we don't know it? So that's really why we need to be getting out and telling our story so that we're not cut out of the market. And when you look at, if I go back one, when you look at a couple, when you look at just those brands and retailers there, I tallied up what they use. They use about 4 times Australia's cotton crop. So, they're pretty important players that we want to keep in the camp. So, look, this is relatively new to the Australian industry because, as I said, our shippers have done such a great job at selling all our cotton. We haven't really been out there in the global marketplace telling our story. So, in the last 18 months, we've set up our cotton to market strategy, and it's really about getting out there in the global market, providing confidence in cotton, and particularly Australian cotton, positioning Australian cotton for the future, trying to future-proof those markets, leveraging those investments that we've made over the last 20 years in sustainability. That 20 mil a year that we're investing those grower and government dollars through our R&D corporation, there's a great story there from the last 20 years. And really, we've got to try and arrest our cotton's falling market share in the global fibre market. And so, look, for those of you that like the diagrams, here's what we've been doing. We've been out there telling the story, a little bit of branding and key messages and developing some resources. We've had some engagement with the supply chain, both direct and through partnerships with some programs that I'll talk about in a second. We've been getting some brand exposure through media and events. And we've been trying to influence the influencers through the Better Cotton Initiative and the NGOs. And potentially in the future, who knows if we can influence consumers. So that's the strategy that we've been using. But as I say, we're pretty new to this game. So there's 3 distinct parts to this cotton to market program that I'm talking about. We've got a cotton leads program, and I'll explain what that is in a minute, the Better Cotton Initiative, and just the Australian cotton story that we're using locally. Now, Cotton Leads is a partnership that we've set up between the Australian cotton industry and the US cotton industry. So particularly Cotton Australia and Cotton Incorporated in the US. Now, Cotton Incorporated is similar to our Research and Development Corporation, probably more like, in a way, AWI. It does the research and the marketing for the US crop. But Cotton Incorporated actually works on the principle that if they can promote cotton, not just US cotton, any cotton, that drives up use of cotton and that everyone benefits from the increased price. And so we've set up this partnership with them, and some people would say, why would you get into bed with the Americans? They're the #1 exporter in the world, you're the #3, aren't you? Don't you want to knuckle it out with them? Why would you get into bed with them? Well, really, if we rise above that, the competition is man-made fibre. It's not the US cotton or Australian cotton. We're competing about the synthetic fibres, and we've got to rise above the sort of the fight with the US and other growths, and try and drive cotton consumption globally. Give people confidence in using cotton. So, here we are. We've got this Cotton Leads program. We've got over 300 major brands and retailers and manufacturers that are a part of that program. And the program is based on national level metrics. So Australia and the US making the case for our cotton industries based on national level metrics. So the sort of metrics that we can talk about in Australia is around our footprint. Our yield in Australia for Australian cotton is about 3 times the global average. So we're incredibly efficient. We can clearly document a 95% reduction in pesticide use over the last 15 years. We can clearly document a 40% improvement in water use efficiency. So we've got these national metrics that can give these brands and retailers confidence. We've also got, in place regulation and compliance around the labour market. You're not going to end up with, cotton that's hand-picked by children in Australia. So we've got to get that story out there. And so we've got 300 partners and growing with the Better Cotton Initiative. And that partnership with the US industry, though, leads to enormous opportunities for us because, as I said, Cotton Incorporated, they're spending $40 million a year on promotion. They've got offices in Shanghai, Hong Kong, all around the world. They've got account managers that are working with the major brands and retailers out of those offices. And we're able to, if you like, come in and on their coattails. And so when they run their Great Ideas in Cotton Conference, you know, Australia gets a keynote spot at speaking and telling our story to 300 of the world's largest brands and retailers. Now, we couldn't hope to get that opportunity without that sort of partnership. We also get to really engage with those 300 partners so we can get out and pitch up our information. We're putting out information to them, partner posts we call it, sending out information about continuous improvement, giving them confidence in using our product. And we're running partner lunches and alike. And this partner lunch in Hong Kong, I just see the face of that Chinese gentleman in the front, Mr. Mann. He's from Esquel. Now, Esquel make a shirt every 7 seconds. And so he's the sort of person that we want in the room when we're telling that Australian cotton story and giving him confidence about using cotton and about particularly using Australian cotton. The other initiative that we're partnering with is the Better Cotton Initiative, and we're a little more hesitant about entering into this partnership because this is one of these sort of global round tables, and it's got, you know, the non-government organisations, the NGOs, so WWF, Solidaridad, Pesticide Action Network, but also around the table is the major brands and retailers. So you've got the brands and retailers, you've got manufacturers, and then you've got producers. So all those groups are around the table in this Better Cotton Initiative. That still wasn't enough to give us confidence, so we went to one of the meetings and we made sure that we actually got a seat at the table. We got elected onto the board of this global initiative, and our Deputy Chairman, Simon Corish, takes that board position at the Better Cotton Initiative. And the key thing that he's able to report back to us from that is that this thing's not being run by the NGOs, this thing's being run by retailers and brand owners that want to ensure they can source responsibly produced cotton. And so, you know, we're really getting involved in this Better Cotton Initiative now. We've linked it up with our industry's best management practices program. So, you know, in this case, we've gone from that Cotton Leads program where you're looking at national metrics and a national picture down now to on-farm accreditation with our best management practices program, where farms are actually audited to make sure they meet the standards. And so we've got that linkage there that farms that are in our best management practices program also are in the Better Cotton Initiative program. And these are some of the brands and retailers that are involved in the Better Cotton Initiative. You know, it's a who's who of the major brands and retailers because they're all trying to source cotton out of this initiative because they know it will protect their reputation and their brand. And here's Simon Corish, our board member. This was at last year's General Assembly in the Netherlands, and Simon presented to the room, and it was just all about this authentic storytelling from Australian farmers, and these brands and retailers lap it up. He gives the Corish Farm story. There's plenty of photos of he and the kids out in the crop talking about how that farm is the kids' playground and how they get their education there. And at the end, with that authentic storytelling, he gets mobbed by the retailers and branders. Half these people, they're sourcing enormous amounts of cotton. They've never seen a cotton field. They've never been there. And to hear about Australian cotton production, you know, Simon he was feeling a bit like a rock star. You know, he doesn't look like one, but he was feeling like that. So, and then sorry for this picture, but this one was texted through to me, and I've just cut it in there last night. But we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago facilitated by Julie Bishop. DFAT made the offer of using some of the consuls and embassies, and so we took them up on the offer. And last night in Istanbul, we hosted a function because the Better Cotton Initiative was having its General Assembly. This is the night before. We hosted a function, and we had Nike, Adidas, H&M, IKEA, Levi Strauss, Bestseller, the VF Corporation, which has, you know, North Face, Lee, Wrangler, Vans, Timberland, Tommy Hilfiger, Marks and Spencer and Tesco around the table in a discussion about Australian cotton. So before dinner, we put on dinner and drinks for them, but we had this which my farmer directors that were there and staff that were there just said it was phenomenal. So again, just that authentic storytelling, getting the message to the procurement managers of those leading companies. Now, we'd never hoped to get those people in the room if we weren't in that global initiative, if we weren't in that partnership. So, yeah, again, that authentic storytelling. And then the third part of our strategy is just engagement with Australian brands and retailers, and we're trying to talk to the iconic brands and tell our story to them and see if they're interested in using Australian cotton, because there's such a good story there. And so we're having lots of meetings with some of the big brands, and certainly to try and get them in. One of the things with our partnership with Cotton Leads is Cotton Incorporated has a fashion trends forecasting team based out of New York. These are ladies that travel the world shopping, looking at the latest fashion trends. I know there's a lot of people that would like their jobs, looking at the latest fashion trends and taking that back and then doing presentations to the major retailers and brand owners about where are the trends going in fabrics and fibres and colours and alike. And so they offered up their lady, Lauren, who was in Sydney and Melbourne doing her sort of secret shopping expedition. And we were able to then get retailers and brand owners in Australia in and actually offering something. Instead of us going to them cap in hand looking for something, we're offering something to them, again through this partnership. And then we've recently done some fashion industry farm tours, getting some of the major brands and retailers in Australia out into the paddock, because again, these people work with our product every day and didn't know where it comes from. And so, when I look there, I see there's people from, Kirsty Clements is the ex-editor of Vogue. There's a number of designers there from Target, the head of Sportscraft and that group. Circle Park's a new one. And the lady that's the curator of the Darnell collection, so a world-famous fashion collection is there. So, people that are now just converts to the Australian cotton industry after just being out there in the field, sitting on a picker, talking to the farmers. And we've got, Target Australia have really, latched onto this. They've got a campaign with 100% Australian cotton. So they've got over 2 million garments in store at the moment, shirts, T-shirts, babies wear and alike, that's 100% Australian cotton and labelled as such, telling our story. And, this sort of program is not going to sell much more Australian cotton really, but for us, it's important that the Australian public understand that we do have a world-respected cotton industry in this country, and that we do produce a premium product, and they should be very proud of it. And so you'll see some of the Target campaign, and I've actually bought some of those 500 thread count sheets. They're beautiful. They're very nice, 100% Australian cotton. And we've been putting together some new marketing materials for our cotton shippers, so translated materials telling the Australian cotton story. We've got an Australian cotton video to support our efforts. And we, through discussions with our colleagues at Cotton Incorporated, our colleagues at Australian Wool Innovation, we actually went out to an international trade show last year. It's the first time we've done that. And we went to the Intertextile Trade Show in Shanghai. Now, it was a bit of an eye-opener. You can see our sort of little Australian stand down in the front there telling our story. But that huge pavilion was one of 15 pavilions. It was just, 4,000 exhibitors, 75,000 people at this trade show. And I tell you, it was an eye-opener because we had, again, our grower directors there. There's Barb Gray from Mungandai talking to a potential client. And, yeah, what we saw was there was Cotton Incorporated and Cotton Australia. That was the cotton story. But the synthetics, the man-made fibres just dominate this space, Here they are. Look at DuPont. They've just got a massive area. All this green marketing, these products are 30% plant cellulose and 70% chemical, but they're trying to badge themselves as these new, beautiful, natural fibres. And very scary, the creep, jeans 100% nylon, moving into our traditional cotton markets. So, at the end of the day, yes, we've got to work to future-proof our industry and work with those retailers and brand owners, but for us, the real competition is the man-made fibres. So we've got to give people confidence to use Australian cotton, and cotton generally, just drive cotton consumption globally. And we see an opportunity for that brand Australia, that true Aussie. We know the MLA's done a great job there. We know NFF's talking to them, and we think instead of us running off and doing some more branding, that's something we could come under, because we already know out there in the spinning mills and that Australian cotton has a brand. It's Australian cotton. People want it. They know it's contamination free. It's high quality. But why not get some sort of badging that's the same as other Australian produce with a great story to tell? So yeah, we're interested to sort of pursue that true Aussie brand. And that's enough from me. Thank you for listening to our story.